Good evening, everyone. In the last session, we have seen how to develop form-based applications by using WebMVC. Forms are very important in every web application development, and forms we are using to collect the data from the user to perform the business operation. In the last session, we created a simple form. Boot application. I'm running our boot application. So whenever we run the boot application, by default, it will run in the embedded server. The default embedded server we are getting, that is Apache Tomcat. Tomcat server will run on the port number 8080. So here we are having a REST controller, guys. So if you observe, we are having user controller. Now, this user controller having two methods. One method is binded to get request. Another method is binded to post request. This get request method is used to display our index page, and in that page there are some fields available with a button. When you click on the button, then request will come to this method, and this method is used to store. This method is used to handle form submission. Currently, I'm not doing any business operation. I'm just taking the data and I'm printing on the console, and I'm returning the same page with a success message. I'm returning the same page with a success message. Perfect. So go and access that form. Localhost :8080. So empty URL pattern, get mapping, empty URL pattern, my form is loaded. Let me enter the data in the form and click on submit. It is giving a message, user saved. Now see, the form data is coming here and the form data is displaying in the console. Now here, if you see, we developed a form by using basic HTML tags. We developed the form by using basic HTML tags. So that is index.jsp. So here, if you see, I have created a form tag with the action attribute and a method attribute. The action attribute is used to represent when this form is submitted, which controller method should be called. Method. So by default, whenever you send a request, it will go as a get request. But I want to send the form data in the request body. That's why I'm giving the method as a post, so that post request will go to the server. Now here table is available TR, and here TR is available, and this form is displaying. When I click on the submit button, it is going to my controller method and it is saving some message in the model attribute, and it is returning the index page. On the same page, success message is displayed. Now here, guys, so if you want to display static fields, so just a text field, then this is fine. But now I want to display a form with some dynamic data. So HTML tags we are using to display the form fields, but I want to display form with some dynamic data like this. I want to develop one student registration form. So that is having a name and email ID, gender, name, email, gender, course, which course they want to attend, and timings. So like this, I want to display a form. So name, that will become that is a text field. I will take a name as a text field, and email ID I will be taking as a text field. Gender I will take as a radio buttons. So gender I will take it as a male, and female as a radio buttons. Course, I'm going to take the course as a drop down. Course I want to take it as a drop down, and timings I want to take as a check boxes. So some people are interested for morning, some people are interested for afternoon, some people are interested in the evening. So I want to give check boxes, right? I want to give you a check boxes to take this timings. So they may select multiple options. Some people are interested for all the timings. Some people are interested for only one timing. Courses, some courses I want to display here, and this gender will be displayed as a radio button. Now, name, email are the text fields. Name, email are the text fields, and gender is a radio button. Course is a drop down. Timings are available like this. Now here, I want to give a submit button. I want to give a submit button here. Perfect. So I want to save this student data. I want to save this student data in the database table. Right. Now here, I want to give one more hyperlink, that is view students. Okay. So what are the students are stored? View students hyperlink I want to give in the same page. So whenever you click on view students, all the students data should be displayed in the another page. All the students data should be displayed in the another page like this. We need to have serial number. We need to have the serial number and name, email, gender, some fields, whatever the data that you want to display, that table we need to display students data here. Students data should be displayed here. Like this, I want to display students data. Are you guys getting my point? Serial number, name, email, and gender. Student data will go here. Like this, I want to develop one web application. So a student registration form, and this form should store the data into database table. And whenever I click on the hyperlink, that student data should be displayed in the another page. Student data should be displayed in the another page. Now here guys, gender values, course values, timings, I don't want to hard code in the JSP. I want to get the dynamic data. So Spring Framework provided form tag libraries to simplify forms development. Spring Web MVC provided, if you observe here, Spring Web MVC provided form tag library. Spring Web MVC module provided form tag library to simplify forms development. To simplify forms development, right? So in the Spring form tag library, there are several tags available. Form tag is available. Form input tag is available. Form password tag is available. Form password tag is available. Form radio button tag is available. And form checkbox is available. Form select is available. Form checkbox is available. So these all are the tags that are provided by Spring Form Tag Library. So we created a form yesterday. That form is using just basic HTML. Now I want to develop the form by using some dynamic values. So form should display a drop-down with the courses. Form should display checkboxes with the timings. Form should display radio buttons for the gender. Right. So in order to add these dynamic values to the form, we need to go for form tag library. Spring Web MVC provided its own form tag library. By using that form tag library, we can develop the forms. Now, requirement is develop student registration form. Develop student registration form with below fields. That is my requirement. Develop student registration form. Develop student web application with below functionality. With below functionality. Student registration should be available and display students should be available. View students. So we should be able to register a student. Student registration we should be able to do, and we should be able to view the students. In the student registration, we should take a name field. Name, it is a text field. Name I want as a text field. Email also I want as a text field. Gender I want as a radio button. Gender I want it as a radio button. Then next one, course I want it as a drop down. Timings I want to take it as a checkboxes. Timings should come as checkboxes like this. Now student registration, store in DB, store in database. Store the student registration data in the database table. So I'm taking these fields in the form. View students. Display all the students in the web page. Display all students details, all registered student details. Registered student details in web page. Are you guys clear with my point? Requirement. Develop student web application with below functionality. Student registration form, store the data in the database, and name will be available. Form fields will be available. View students data, display all registered students details in the web page. This is my application requirement. Now here guys, course is a drop down and timings are checkboxes. Gender, radio buttons. Email is a text field. Name is also a text field. If you want, we can add the phone number also, that is optional, right? You can add a text field also. Now, let us see the procedure for this. Let us see the procedure for this. So the first step is create Spring Boot application with below dependencies. Create a Spring Boot application with below dependencies. I'm going to use database also. For that, data JPS starter I'm going to take. First one is, I'm taking web starter. To develop a web application, we need a web starter. And I am going to take data JPS starter, starter data JPS starter web starter, data JPS starter I need. This time I'm going for embedded database, guys. Earlier we used MySQL database. Now I want to show you demo with the embedded database. For that I'm going for H2. H2 database I'm taking. Then next one is web starter, data JPS starter, H2, DevTools, and we need JSTL. We need to display the data in the web page. For that, we need the JSTL dependency. Web starter, data JPS starter, H2 dependency. H2 is for embedded DB, guys. DevTools, JSTL dependency, we are going to take. Create a boot application with below dependency. Second one, create entity class and repository interface. Create entity class and repository interface to store the data. Create entity class and repository interface to store the data. Got my point? Entity class is available, which is used to map with the database table, and repository interface to perform operations with the database table. Create the entity class and create the repository interface to store the data. Perfect. Now here, next one, create a controller class to handle request and response. Create controller class to handle request and response. Next one, create controller class to handle request and response. So create presentation files, create view files using JSP. I'm going to do that. Then next one, configure view resolver, configure below properties in application.properties file. Properties file or YML file, anything is fine. Run the application and test it. Perfect. So this is the application that I'm going to develop. Guys, remember, in this application, I'm using H2 database to store our data. Create a boot application with below dependencies. Web starter. To develop a web application, we need the web starter. To communicate with the database, I'm using JPA starter. And H2 embedded database I'm using. DevTools to restart the server. JSTL for the presentation logic. We are using that. Create entity class and repository interface to store the data. Create the controller class to handle request and response. Create view files using JSP. Configure below properties in application.properties file. Run the application and test it. Perfect. Now go and create the project, guys. Close this. File, new Spring Starter project. File, new Spring Starter project. I want to create a boot application. Yeah. Let me take this as 17 Web MVC student registration. Student Web MVC student registration app, Maven project, packaging war file. Next, 2.7.9 version of the Spring Boot, web dependency, DevTools, JPA starter. Let me go for H2. H2 database I'm selecting. JSTL will not come here, guys. We need to add it separately. Okay. Web starter is available, JPA starter, H2 database, DevTools. So one dependency is missing, JSTL. The JSTL dependency we need to add manually. And Tomcat embed Jasper, guys, I forgot it. Tomcat embed Jasper also required. Tomcat embed Jasper dependency is also required. Click on next, click on finish. Two dependencies we need to add externally. One is Tomcat embed Jasper that already we have added in the previous project. Let me take from there. Tomcat embed Jasper. Yes, let me copy this from the previous project. Add this in the current project. Form.xml, starter data JPA, web dependency. Tomcat embed Jasper is added. Let me get another dependency that is JSTL. So get it from mvnrepository.com. So take JSTL dependency, java x.servlet.jstl. This is moved to JSTL dependency 1.2. Let me copy this dependency. JSTL dependency to develop the presentation logic. Now, let me add this JSTL dependency here. Version is not required. Yes. I have added this dependency. It is downloading. I think this dependency java x.servlet.jstl. It is not working. There is an issue with this dependency, guys. Let me try other one. Same thing I have tried. There is a problem with this. JSTL dependency I want to add. Java x.servlet.jstl. Yeah, fine. This dependency is working, guys. Java x.servlet.jstl, Java x.servlet, and JSTL is the artifact ID. Fine. So with this, I'm able to create my project. I just created my project. Now I need to create my entity class and repository interface to store the data. See the form. In the form, we are getting the name, email, gender, course, timings. So name, email, gender, course, timings. So here I want to create one entity class which represents those fields. So I'm going to create this class as an entity. That entity I'm taking as student. Student entity. Let me represent the class name correctly. This is my student entity. Student entity class. So as we discussed already, to represent the class as an entity, we will go for @entity annotation, Java X persistence entity. Variables are required, private, integer student ID, and private string student name, or else let me use short variable names, SID, student ID, student name, and private string gender, and private string course, private string course, private string timings. So like this, I'm taking ID, name, gender, course, timings. ID, name, email is also required. Private string email. Private string email is required. Name, email, gender, course, timings. Name, email, gender, course, timings variables are available. Now, let me generate setters, getters for these variables. We can use Lombok also, guys. So setters, getters I am generating, and toString method I am adding. Right. So with this, our entity class is ready. Let us create one repository interface. Create interface, student repository. Student repository. Let me create that in the repo package. To make this interface as a JPA repository, we are extending the properties from JPA repository. Extends JPA repository. Interface extends JPA repository. So what is the entity class? The entity class is a student entity. Primary key is integer type. That's it. So with this, our repository is ready. With this, our repository is ready and our entity is also ready. Now we need to create the controller class to handle the request and response. Now, how many methods we need in the controller, guys? Can you tell me? How many methods we need in the controller? We need one method to load the form, one method to save the form data, another method to display the saved data. So total, how many methods we need in this application? Why? How many methods we need in this application? In the controller, 3 methods are required. So let me create a student controller, new class. Let me take the class name as student controller. To represent this class as a controller, we are going for one annotation called @controller annotation. Now we need 3 methods. One method to load student form, method to load the student form, method to save student form data, method to display saved students data, method to display saved students data. So total, we need 3 methods here. One method is used to load the student form. One method is used to save the student form data. Another method is used to display the form data, saved data. So first method, I'm going to create it as public string load form. Public string load form. So here, I'm going to take model object. Model object. This method, I'm binding to get request. This is binded to get request. I'm using get mapping and return view name. The view name is index. So here that student form date, student form, I'm going to create with a name called index.js. Okay. So this one I'm going to name it as display.js or data.js, students.js or anything is fine. Data.js. So like this, I'm taking 2 files. So first one is load form method, which is returning index. Now here, guys, when I'm trying to load the form, I need to bind timings. I don't want to hard code these values. I don't want to hard code the course values in the presentation file. I want to send this data from the controller. So to send the data from the controller to UI, we will use model object. So what I will do is, first I'm going to create list of string courses is equal to new array list. So like this, I'm going to create one array list object. For that array list object, I'm going to set the courses which I want to display in the dropdown. Courses.add. I'm adding one course called Java and courses.add DevOps. Courses.add AWS. Courses.add Python. Something like this. Okay. So these are the courses that I want to display. Then similarly, list of string, I want to send some timings, new array list. So whatever the timings I want to display in the checkboxes, I'm going to add them. Timings.add. One is morning. Timings.add afternoon. And timings.add evening. Like this. Now, this data I want to send to the UI to display in the dropdown. This data I want to send to the UI to display the timings. So here I'm using model object. Model object is used to send the data from controller to UI. So courses data I want to send to the UI. Timings data I want to send to the UI. Today here, I'm keeping in the Java program. We can read the courses from the database table also, and we can send to the UI. Timings also we can read from the database table, and we can send to the UI. Courses available, timings available. How to send this data to the UI? To send this data to the UI, we are going to to send the data to the UI, we are going to use model.add attribute key. What is the key here? Courses. Courses available. This one, I will make it as courses list. Courses list.add, courses list.add, courses list.add. Now this one, I'm making it as timings list. Let us take this timings list.add, timings list.add, timings list.add. Now courses.add, model.add attribute courses, I'm adding courses list. Similarly, model.add attribute, I'm going for timings. Now timings list, I'm adding to the model. Guys, in the last session, we discussed what is the model. Model is a map which is used to store the data in the form of key and value. What is the main purpose of the model? Model is used to send the data from controller to UI. Similarly, now I'm going to create one student object. Student is equal to new student. Now I'm going to set student object also to the model attribute. So key is a student. To bind the student data to the form, I'm sending student object also in the model. Right? That is student object. Form binding we need to create. So for the form binding, student class is not available. Let me create the student class. One binding class I'm creating, guys. Entity is separate, binding is separate. Binding is used to bind the form data to the object. I'm creating one binding class with a name called student. Now, whatever the variables are available with the same variables, I'm going to create the student class. But one thing will be different here, guys. That is timings is an array because user can select multiple timings. User can select both morning as well as evening. So two values can come for one field. So to represent more than one value for one field, we are going to use string array concept. We are going to use string array concept. Got my point? Fine. So for these variables also, we need to generate the setters and getters. Generate the setters and getters. Source, generate getters and setters. Click on generate. So this is our form data. This is our form data. That form data will be stored to this object. We can print that form data by using toString object, by using toString method. Let me override toString. I'm overriding toString method. All right. Now let me create the student object. So this is form binding object. I'm sending the form binding object also to the UI by using model. Now if you observe, total 3 objects I'm sending from controller to UI by using model. Model.add attribute key value. Model.add attribute key value. Model.add attribute key value. I'm sending courses. I'm sending timings. I'm sending student object also. All right. Now index page. Index page represents form. Right. Let me create the form, guys. Observe carefully. I'm going to develop the form by using Spring MVC form tag library. To display the text field, form : input. To display the password, this tag. To display the radio button, this tag. To display the drop down, this tag. To display the checkboxes, this tag we are going to use. Let me create my index page in the web app. I'm going to create a folder. That folder name you can give anything. I'm giving the name as views. Let me take new file. That is JSP file. I'm going to take new other JSP file. Click on next, index. My controller is returning index as a view name. So I'm taking this index. So here I want to develop presentation logic. The student registration form I want to build here. So student registration form. The student registration form I want to develop by using student registration form I want to develop by using Spring MVC form tag library. So for that, I'm using taglib. Spring form tag will be available. As we have added web starter, then we will get the access for Spring MVC form tag library. Let me select that form tag library here. Spring MVC form tag library will be available. Last one. Spring MVC form tag library, prefix will be form for that. Now, to display the form, we are going to take form tag. We are going to take the form tag. How we are going to take the form tag? Form colon form. Form colon form. So for this form colon form, we are going to specify action. Form colon form action, model attribute also we are going to specify. This action will represent which method you want to call when this form is submitted. Model attribute, what is the binding class object? This form belongs to which class object? This form data should be stored into which class object? That should be stored into student object. Student object already I am sending from controller to UI by using this model object. This is the key. Let us take this key and let's give it here as a model attribute. Model attribute is equal to student. Now here, let me give this as a student. Action is equal to student. Model attribute is equal to student. Action can be anything. Save. You can give it as a save also. Action means which controller method you want to call when the form is submitted. Model attribute is equal to student. Model attribute is equal to student that represents this form data should be stored to with the model object. Already I am sending that model object to the UI from the controller. Next one, we need to create the form. For that, I'm taking one table. Inside the table, we will have the TR, one table row. In that, one TD will be available and another TD will be available. First, I want to display the text field. To display the text field, we are having a tag called form colon input. Form colon input to path. This path represents this field. Whatever the field, the data that we are entering, that field data should be stored into binding class object variable. So now that should be stored to which variable? That should be stored to name variable. That should be stored to name variable. Now here I'm giving the label as name. Form colon input path is equal to name. What is the meaning of path is equal to name? In the student object, name variable will be available. This text field data should be stored into name variable. Now let us see with this, are we able to get the form with the text field or not? Just, I'm not writing anything, just I'm going to test it. So in order to do that testing, we have added H2 dependency, JPA starter. For that, we need to configure data source properties. We need to configure data source properties. So let me configure spring dot data source dot URL, spring dot data source dot username, spring dot data source dot password, spring dot data source dot driver class. So which database we are using? We are using H2 database. Username and password you can give anything, no problem. Driver class name org.h2.driver. Now JDBC URL, JDBC colon mem colon h2 colon test. You can give anything. JDBC colon mem colon h2 colon test. This is data source URL. This is username. This is password. This is driver class. This is embedded database, guys. We'll see what is that embedded database, how it looks like. Then spring dot mvc dot view dot prefix. Prefix I'm going to give as /views. Spring dot mvc dot view dot suffix. Suffix I'm giving as .jst. So this is my data source property. Instead of giving MySQL database, I'm giving H2 database. H2 is my embedded database. All right. Now let me run my application and see. Refresh. Close other projects. Close other projects. Now right click, run as boot application. I just want to see my form is loading or not. Embedded database is available, which is used to store the data. Save functionality I have not implemented. First, I want to display the form by using my form tag library. For that, where is our REST controller? Student controller is available here. Mapping URL empty. So it is just displaying index page. So what is there in the index page? Index page contains the logic to display a form. That's it. Just one text field will display. That's it. Localhost colon 8080. Now see that site cannot be reached. Localhost colon 8080. Application started or not? Application is failed, guys. Cannot load the driver class. Spelling mistake. It should be org.h2.driver. Go to properties. org.h2.driver. I have added correct driver class. Now refresh. Run as boot application. Again, it is failed. Driver org.h2 driver class not accepting JDBC URL. JDBC colon mem colon h2 colon test. URL is wrong. Let me check it. In Google. h2db JDBC URL. h2db database URL. JDBC colon h2 colon mem, guys. JDBC colon h2 colon mem colon test. Yeah, I corrected the URL. Run as boot app. Again, it is failed. No identifier specified. Okay, entity class is having a mistake. Student entity. Yes, there is a problem. @ ID, primary key. And here, table. @ table annotation, it is optional, but still, I'm giving the table name as student details. For the entity, primary key representation is mandatory. Right click, run as boot application. Yeah, application started. Refresh. Yes, now you can see student registration form. Name text field is displaying. Similarly, I want to display other fields also. Name text field is coming here. Similarly, I want to display other text fields, which is email. Email text field I want to display. What is the path for the email? That means this text field value should be stored into which variable? This text field value should be stored into student class email variable. Let me take that email variable and let me give it here. Now refresh. We are getting email text field. Next, I want to go for gender. Gender I want to display as a radio button. Now, to display the gender as a radio button, we need to write the tags for that. Gender, form colon input we can't use. Input is for only text field, but gender should be radio button. So for that, we are having a tag called form colon radio button, path is equal to gender. So it should be male. Then another one, form colon radio button, path is equal to gender. It should be female. Now refresh. Now we are getting gender as a radio button. Name, email, gender. Next one, I want to go for course. Course should display as a drop down. So what values should come in the course drop down? Already I am sending the course list from the controller to UI by using model object. How to display course drop down with data? Let us see. I'm going for TR. Here I'm selecting course. Now I need to display drop down. To display the drop down, we are having a tag called form colon select. What is the path? In the student, course is available, variable name. Form colon select, path. What are the options? Form colon options. Form colon options will be available. Options items is equal to $of course list, $of courses. So I'm sending these options. Right? Must be empty. Form colon options. Form colon options must be empty. What is the meaning of empty? Form colon options. Right. For these options, what are the options that we need to display? To display the options, we are giving items. What is the item? We have the item courses. That means we are sending the data from controller. What is the key? Key is the courses. What is the value? Courses list. So when I give the courses, it should display all the options in the drop down. It should display all the options in the drop down. Refresh. Now courses. Can you see? The courses are coming from the controller to UI to display in the drop down. Java, DevOps, AWS, Python. So from where the data is coming to this drop down, guys? Is it hard coded in the JSP page or it is coming from the controller? This data is hard coded in the JSP page or it is coming from the controller? It is coming from the controller. Can I get it from the database also? Can I get it from the database also? Simple. Instead of hard coding the data, you can get it in the database, and from the controller, you can send to the UI by using model. Yeah, guys. So can I get these values from the database also? Yes, we can get it from the database also. Now, if you want to display one select option, then you can go for form colon option, select, form colon option, select, value empty. Okay. Now go to here, refresh. Can you see course select option? The remaining options are coming. So from where the course names are coming, guys? From where these course names are coming? These course names are coming from the controller. From the controller. So in the controller, I'm creating a list. In the controller, I'm creating a list. That list I'm sending to the UI by using model object. So what is the purpose of the model object? Can you guys tell me what is the purpose of the model object? Model object is used to send the data from controller to UI. Model object is used to send the data from controller to UI. All right, fine. Courses are coming in the dropdown. Similarly, I want to display timings. How timings should display? Timings is the checkbox. So how to display the checkboxes? Let's see here. Spring MVC provided form tag library for that. Preferred timings. User can select multiple timings, right? Form colon checkboxes. So we need to go for form colon checkboxes. Items. So for checkboxes, what are the items? I'm sending that from controller. Timings is available as a key, and this is the value. Let's take this key. For items, let's pass that key. And path is equal to, in which variable you want to store the timings? Timings variable is available as a string array. That means more than one timing can come. That's why I'm taking it as a string array. Name is only one value. Email is only one value. Gender is only one value. Course is only one value. But timings can be multiple. Timings can be multiple. That's why I'm taking it as a string array. So let us take this timings. Let's keep it as a path. Now refresh our page. Can you see timings are coming as checkboxes? Gender you can select only one value. Gender you can select as only one value. Course you can select only one value. Timings you can select as multiple. I'm fine. I want to learn Java. Morning batch is fine for me. Evening batch also fine for me. I want to learn Java. Morning batch also fine for me. Evening batch also fine for me. Like this, I can select all these values. Are you guys clear how I am developing form with the dynamic values by using Spring MVC form tag library. By using Spring MVC form tag library, we are able to develop the form. Form action is equal to save. Model attribute is equal to student. Name is a text field. To display the text field, we will go for form:input. Right. To display the radio button, we will go for form:radio button. To display the drop down, we will go for form:select. In the drop down options, default option is select, and drop down values should come from the backend. That values are coming, and I am representing that as a items attribute. Timings, checkboxes also coming from the controller. Right. I want a submit button. Now let us see here. TD, let me leave this empty. And there is no direct tag for the submit button, guys. So you need to write basic normal form:input type is equal to submit. Input type is equal to submit. Value is equal to save. Value is equal to save. That is normal HTML tag I'm writing. Refresh. Now you see save tag, save button is coming here, which is used to save the data. Refresh. Form is displaying. Currently in the controller, I have written only one method. What is the purpose of this method? Method to load student form. Right. So load form method is available. I'm creating courses list. I'm creating timings list. I'm creating student object. That student object, courses, timings, all the three things I'm sending from controller to UI by using model object. I'm returning index. In the index page, I'm using Spring MVC form tag library by using taglib directive. Now form is there. Text field, then gender, radio button, course, drop down, form:select, timings, checkboxes, form:checkboxes, input type is equal to submit. I want to save this form. When this form is saved, I want to handle that by using post request. So we need to specify method is equal to post. We need to specify method is equal to post. That means I want to send a post request. So to handle the post request, we need to write a method here. How to write a method? Public string handle submit. Handle submit. So when the form is submitted, I will get the form data, student data, and I am going to take model object. So what is this student? Form binding object. So form data will be stored into student object. The student object I'm taking as a method parameter. This data will come from the form into the student object. And the model is used to send the data from controller to UI. This method I want to bind to a post request. For that I'm using post mapping save. Now let me just print the student object on the console before saving it. Now logic to save. I need to save the data into database. Return index. I want to display same page and I want to send one success message also. Model.add attribute. Model.add attribute key is a message student saved. Student saved. All right. Now I am returning same index page. So this message I want to display on the index page in the green color. Now here I'm going to display that message. Font color is equal to green, $of message. That's it. I'm not inserting in the database, guys. Just I'm trying to see form is getting submitted or not. If the form is getting submitted, then we will see how to save that form. Perfect. Save it. Clear the console. Now refresh. Enter the data. Morning and evening. Click on save. Error. We got the error, guys. Items must not be null. Yeah. So the problem is, first time when we are accessing this URL, form is loaded successfully. Okay. In our form, we are accessing dynamic data. Here, items courses should be available. Here, items timings should be available. And form is loaded. Drop down data is coming. Checkboxes data is also coming. Whenever you click on the save method, the request will go to this post request method. In this method, we are capturing form data. That is fine. Form data will be captured. That form data will be captured. After capturing the form data, here you see data is coming. After data is coming to the form, we are returning the same page. It is loading the index. When it is loading the index for the second time, after the form is submitted, model will not contain these values. Courses not available in the model, timings not available in the model. That's why it is failing. Clear the console. Let me do the form submission once again. Name, I'm typing as Raja. Email, raja@gmail.com. Gender is male. Course is Python. Timings morning and afternoon. Click on save method. When I click on the save method, go to the console. If you observe, student object name is Raja, email Raja, gender value not coming, course value coming, timings also coming. Gender is not coming. We will see why it is not coming. Right. Course is Python, timings morning and afternoon. Form is submitted successfully. Form data came to the server. After that, my controller is returning index. So index page is reloading. When the index page is reloading, it is not able to identify courses and timings in the model. That's why it is failed. So in this scenario, what we need to do is, whatever the data that we are storing in the model object, this data we need to keep here also. That data we need to keep here also, because after form is submitted, again the page should be reloaded. With the drop downs data. That's why whenever we are loading the form for first time, whatever the data we are sending, same data we need to send to the UI even after the student record is saved also. Now that issue will be resolved. Refresh, clear the screen, fill the form, raju@gmail.com. Course is AWS, morning and evening. Click on save. Student saved, form is reloaded. When the form is reloaded, again we got the data. That is the reason we are adding the data. So student object is binded. Name is equal to Raju, email, gender is not coming. Let us see why gender value is not coming. Index.jsp, gender male, we need to set the value. We need to set the value. Path value is equal to, here I'm giving as male, here value is equal to female. So when you select the male radio button, value will come as male. When you select the female radio button, value will come as female. I modified it. Now let us reload it. I mean to say, reload the page. Clear the console. Enter the data. raju@gmail.com. Course is Python, afternoon and evening. Click on save. Student saved. Dummy message. Now go here. ID will not come because we are not entering ID. Name we entering as Raju. Email we entered. Gender we entered. Course we selected as Python. Timings we selected as afternoon and evening. Are you guys able to capture the form data in our controller? Are you guys able to capture the form data in the controller? But if you see, there is a duplicate data in our methods. So this data, whatever the code I am writing to send the data to the UI, I am writing this code in the first method, as well as I am writing that code in the second method also. Is it recommended to write this duplicate code, guys? Is this recommended to write this duplicate code here? Is it recommended to write like this? Is it recommended to write like this, or it is not recommended to write like this? It is not recommended to write like this. We need to write the code only once. Simply see here how I will remove the boilerplate code. See here, guys, how I am going to remove the boilerplate code in our program now. Whatever the code is repeated, just select that code. Right click, refactor, extract method. That means wherever the duplicate code is available in our project, just I am selecting the duplicate code, right click, refactor, extract method. What is that method? Load load form data. I want that method name should be load form data. That's it. Click on OK. Now, wherever you need to load the form data, this method will be called. So first method is calling that method. Second method also calling that method. That method is used to load the data which is required for the form. I'm able to remove duplicate data, duplicate code from our controller. So this method is used to load the empty form. Load form get mapping slash. So whenever you send a request, get request here without any URL pattern, then that first method will be called. What this first method will do? It is calling the load form data. What is this load form data method is doing? It is creating course list. It is creating timings list. It is creating student object, setting all the three values to the model object. Model is used to send the data from controller to UI. Fine, that is done. Form is loaded. Index page will be loaded here. Once the index page is loaded, we can fill the form and we can submit that. We can fill the form and we can submit that form. Course, DevOps, timings, anything is fine for me. Now, after filling that form data, we are clicking on save method. When you click on save, form data sent to the server. Controller captured form data in the form of object. Am I capturing the form data, or Spring controller is already getting that form data in the form of object? Dispatcher servlet is capturing our form data and it is giving the data to the controller as a method parameter. Now I got my form data in the form of object. After getting the form data, I'm setting the data to the model object. A success message I want to send from controller to UI. Along with that success message, I want to send the dropdowns data and checkboxes data. That's why I'm calling this method again, load form data, to pre-populate the dropdown and checkboxes. Okay. Currently, this data I'm getting from controller to UI. Directly, I have hard-coded in the controller. We can get this data from the database also. We can get this data from the database also. Clear, guys? Fine. So we are able to submit the form. Now, I want to save this data in the database, guys. First of all, where is our database? I want to save this data into database. Which database we are using? Can you see database properties? Am I using Oracle database? Am I using Oracle database? No. Am I using MySQL database? No. Which database I'm using? Embedded database. What is the embedded database? Embedded database means in-memory database. Whenever our application is started, then database will come. When our application is stopped, database will go. For practice purpose, for learning purpose, we can use this H2DB. You no need to download the database. You no need to set up the database in your system. Quickly, immediately, I want to develop an application with the database logic for learning purpose. Then you can go for embedded database. So here, in our application, database is available. H2 database is available. That is the embedded database. So data source properties I have configured. Database URL, database username, password can be anything. This is the driver class. I'm using embedded database. Sir, how to check this embedded database? Observe carefully. Run as boot application. Whenever we run our application, then database also will come, guys. That is H2 database. H2 database will come, right? Observe, see the console. H2 console is available at /h2-console. Now go to browser, localhost : 8080/h2-console. With this, we are able to access embedded database URL in the browser. Right? Now, what is the driver class? The driver class I have configured, the driver class I configured as org.h2.driver. The driver class is available. JDBC URL mem:/test. Mem:/test I configure as a data JDBC URL. JDBC:/h2:mem:/test. I have configured that. Username I configured as SA. Password also I configured as SA. Test connection. My test is successful. Now connect to the database. I'm connecting to my H2 database. Student details is the table which is created by default. Select star from student details. Based on our entity class, it is considering this table name, and the table is also created in the database table, in the database. So H2 is a temporary database. Based on our entity class, table also created in the database. Now, what I want to do is, I want to insert my record into database table. To insert the record into table, first we need to understand that there is a repository. We created a repository to insert the record into database table. Student repository is available. Let me inject that student repository into our REST controller. Okay, let me inject private student repository, that is repo. All right, now here I'm going for @auto-void repository. So here in the repository, we are having a method called save method, but there is a problem. Repository.save method, it is expecting entity, but we have binding. Guys, there is a difference. When you submit the form, from the form, the data is coming to student object, but repository is expecting student entity object. Okay, so form data we are capturing into student object. Database repository is expecting student entity object. So here we need to copy the data from student object to student entity object, guys. Student entity is equal to new student entity. I need to pass entity object to repository.save method. But if you observe, whenever we submit the form data is coming to the controller method in the form of student object, but repository is expecting entity object. So what we need to do? We need to copy the data from student object to student entity object. Copy the data, copy data from binding object to entity object. How to do that? Bean utils dot copy properties. Student is the source. Student object is the source object. Entity object is the target object. That's it. That's it. Now see here, I'm having handle submit button method, which is binded to post request. Whenever you submit the form, that form data will come to my method as a parameter in the form of object. So once I get that object data, then I'm going to save that data. To save that data, we need an entity. Entity object is created. Actual data is available in the binding object, but my repository save method is expecting entity object. I'm copying the data from the student object to entity object, and I'm calling repository.save method. Model.add attribute key comma value. Load form data. That's fine. Let us see my record will be inserted into database table or not. So application is running. Right. Go to H2 database. It is logged out, guys. Connect to the database. Student details. Run. There is no record available in the database. Let me insert that record. I'm going with Ashok, email ID, ashokIDschool@gmail.com, mail, DevOps, morning and evening. Click on save. Failed. Right? Why it is failed? IDs for this class must be manually assigned. So I'm trying to insert a record, but I'm not setting the value for the primary key. So ID is available. So primary key value should be generated. For that, generated value annotation, which will generate the value for the primary key to insert that record. Okay. Now go back, refresh. Application is refreshed. The application code is modified. When the application code is modified, database will restart. So we need to connect to the database again, embedded database. Now, student details, no record available in our table. Go to our form, insert the record. Ashok IDschool@gmail.com. Gender is male, course, DevOps, morning and evening. Click on save. Student save. Go to database. Can you see all the fields are okay, but the timings are not inserted? Can you guys check this, guys? All the records are inserted, all the values are inserted, but the timings are not inserted into the table. Are you guys able to understand my point? Timings are not inserted to the table. Here, there is a problem. student class is having timings as a string array. Entity class is having timings as a string. So that's why it did not copy. So what we need to do here is, whenever I'm copying the data from the binding object to entity object, all the fields are copied, but timings not copied because of data type mismatch. Because of data type mismatch, timings are not copied. Now I will do one thing. So here, before calling the save method, I will set the value manually. Entity dot set timings. Entity dot set timings. Arrays dot toString. Arrays dot toString. Student dot get timings. So whatever the timings are available in the array format, I'm converting the array to string format by using arrays dot toString. Let's try this time. My database will be restarted because it is embedded database. Whenever server restart, database will restart. We lost our old data. There is no record available. Now go to our form, insert a record, mail, course, DevOps, timings, morning and evening. I'm selecting two values. Click on save, student save. Go to database, run. Now you can see DevOps, email ID, gender, name, timings. Let me insert one more record. Raju @gmail.com. Gender is male. Course is AWS. He is okay with any timing. Desperately is looking for the job. He's okay with any timing of the batch. Click on save, student save. Go to the database, run this. Now see, Raju record is inserted with timings as 3 values. Now let me go for Geeta or Rani. Rani @gmail.com, female, Java. She's interested only in the morning batch. Click on save, student saved, go to database. So Rani record is inserted, female, she's interested for only morning timings. So am I installing the database here or am I using embedded database? I'm using embedded database. If my server is stopped, then my database also will be stopped. If my server is stopped, then my database also will be stopped. If the database is stopped, then we are going to lose our old data. We are going to lose our old data if our server is modified. So here I have written two methods, guys. I have written two methods. One method is used to just to display the empty form. Second method is used to handle form submission. Second method is used to handle the form submission. So whenever you submit the form data is coming to the controller method as a form binding object. We are taking the data from the binding object and we are copying to the entity object. But there is a small difference here. Binding object is having timings as array because multiple timings user can select. That's why it is available as string array. But in the entity class, it is available as a string. So that's why I am manually converting that array value to string value and I'm setting to the entity. Arrays dot toString timings. Timings is coming as array. Array value converted to string. That string I'm setting to the entity. Then I'm calling repository.save, which is going to insert the record into database table. Once the record is inserted, I'm setting the success message to the model. I'm loading the form data for the dropdown for the checkboxes. I'm returning the same page. That's why the message is displaying on the same page. Suppose now, if I stop my server, I can't access my database because my database is a embedded database. That database will be available only if the server is running. If your application is running, then only the database will be available because it is a embedded database. If your application is running, then only this database will be available. Currently, my application is not running. My application is terminated. Currently, my application is terminated. So that's why my database is not available. Again, if you start your application, then database will come. So that is the power of embedded database. That is the power of embedded database. Now, run this application. Application started. Clear the console. Go to here. Refresh. Database is not available. So database is restarted. So whenever you are connecting to the database, make sure whatever the properties we have in the properties file, that data we need to give. URL, username, password, driver class, we need to give here. Password is SA, connect. I connected to database. Select the table name. Click on run. My query is executed, but I'm not getting any data. Previous data got deleted because it is embedded database. Now, let me go here and let me insert a new record. Load the page again. Name, Raju, raju@gmail.com, mail, DevOps, morning and afternoon. Click on save. Student, save. Go to database, run this. Raju record saved with morning and afternoon. Are you clear? How I am able to insert the record into embedded database? So what are the things that we need to do to work with embedded database? Nothing. Just we need to add the dependency in the form.xml. So whenever we are creating a project, at the time of creating the project, we need to select this H2 dependency. After selecting the H2 dependency, we need to add the H2 data source properties. So database URL, database username, database password, database driver class. So if you want to connect with Oracle, Oracle properties you will add. If you want to connect with MySQL, MySQL properties you will add. If you want to connect with H2, H2 properties you will add. H2 is an in-memory database. Whenever your application starts, then database will start. When your application is stopped, then database will be stopped. Are you guys clear with my point? Are you able to understand the application development? Yeah. So next, application is not completed still. This hyperlink task is pending. That hyperlink task I will do tomorrow. People are feeling today's class is difficult. There is nothing difficult, guys, here. The only thing is I'm using Spring MVC form tag library to develop the form. That's it. I'm using Spring MVC form tag library to develop this application. So I created a binding class to capture the form data. I created entity class to persist the data. I created a repository by using JPA. And when I send a request, first method will execute. It will load the form. When you submit the form, that form will be, data will be captured and the data will be inserted to database. Still, we need to write one more method, which is used to retrieve student records from the table and display the data in the another JS. Okay. So whatever the code I developed, I will push that code into GitHub if you want. If you want to try, you can try, or else I will push this code into GitHub repository. I will share the repository URL. Spring Web MVC form app. Okay, guys. I will create a Git repository. I will push my code into Git repository. You can take it from there. Let me go to my project folder, workspace. So this application is our 17th application. Let me take Git bash. I will push the code to Git repository now. Take it from there. Yes. Git init to initialize the repository. Git add dot, then git commit -m message. Initial commit, first commit I'm doing. Some more code is pending that we will commit tomorrow after completion of the development. I need to select the default branch, that is main branch. Add the remote repository URL, then do the git push. Yeah. Now that code, whatever the project I have developed, that code will be pushed to GitHub repository now. If you refresh, you can get this code. The project which I have developed just now, that code is pushed to GitHub repository. You can take it from here. I'm giving the repository URL in the chat box. By using that, you can access it. Can you click on that URL, guys? If you go to GitHub Ashok IT School, then you can see that repository. Okay. You can see the repository. Spring Web MVC form app. Just now I have created the repository, right? If you go to my repositories, you can see Spring Web MVC form app. So if you go to this repository, you can see the files, my form.xml. My files will be available in the src main. resources, data source properties also you can copy from here. H2 data source properties you can take from here. And if you see here, Java folder, packages, my start class available, my controller available. Controller, I forgot to keep in a separate package, guys. Controller you can keep in a separate package. Repository, entity, binding classes are available. Start class is also available. Are you guys able to access my Git repository? Today's application code. So a lot of coding we have done today. So I have given that code. Lot of code we have done. So I have given that code in the Git repository. Yeah. Anybody having any questions, you can ask me now.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, we are returning string, right? In our controller, but model class also, model object also it is passed, na?
We are not going, we no need to return that model object, guys, because who is calling our controller method?
Sir, dispatcher servlet.
When the dispatcher servlet is calling our controller method, dispatcher servlet is passing the model object, right? Whatever the model object it is passing, that model will be linked with the view we are returning. So whatever the data you store in this model object, that model object data directly you can access in the view file. This model is specific to request. Every request will have its own model object. Whatever the data you store in this model, that model object data directly will be accessible in this view page.
Okay. Means dispatcher servlet.
Dispatcher servlet. Yes.
Okay. Dispatcher servlet directly access using view also.
Correct.
Okay. Sir, another doubt is, sir, HTTP servlet session also in this parameter.
You can take HTTP session object also. You can take HTTP request object. From the request, you can get the session.
Okay.
That is session management.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sir, I think we have to add this validations also, no, sir?
We will do that, sir. Once all the functionality completed, then we will add the validation also.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Sir, error control also, no?
Yeah, exception handling also we will do.
Sir,
Ashok, how this JSP to controller will be mapped?
How?
Suppose our JSP is there, right? Index.jsp.
Correct.
How it will go to the specific controller here?
Here action save. So here my controller URL pattern is /save, right?
Yes.
So in the JSP, form action is equal to save. So whenever you submit this button,
got it.
Yeah, it will consider that.
Okay, in that case, if you have multiple controllers, then we need to give the controllers also the name.
Yeah, yes, you can give that, right? So I mean, whenever you submit the form, which controller method you want to access, that URL pattern you will configure. That is action attribute.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sir, here we are using both for one index page, right? If we are using second one, another page, then also, at that time, duplicate code is not required, right?
Then also you need to load the form data, right? How the data will come. I mean, if you don't, after form is submitted, if you don't want to display this form fields again, then it is not required.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah, guys, come on, tell me. What's your question?
So once I can explain the form load form data method.
Load form data method is used to load the data for the drop down and for checkboxes. My drop down should have some options. My checkboxes should come right. I don't want to hard code the drop down data and checkboxes data in the JSP. That's why I'm sending that data from controller to UI by using model object. Got my point, guys? Load form data method is used to load the data to the model object to display the drop down options and to display the checkboxes. I don't want to hard code the data in the JSP. That's why I'm sending that data from controller to UI. To send the data from controller to UI, we are going to use a model object. So here I'm creating a list. I'm setting the data to the model.
Got it, sir. Got it.
Sir, this bean utils class is also coming from Spring Web MVC framework, sir?
It is from Spring Core, sir. Bean utils, it is from Spring Core.
Spring Core. Okay.
Bean utils is a predefined class. If you want to copy the data from one object to another object, then you can go for copy properties method. Variable name should be same. Data type also should be same. Then it will copy the data from one object to another object.
But only primitive types can be copied, not arrays, right, sir?
Right.
Arrays are even array list. If you have array list or set,
No.
that is also not considered.
Reference to types cannot be copied.
Okay. Okay.
Primitives will copy. Primitives can copy. Wrapper classes can copy, but reference types like arrays, collections, user-defined objects cannot be copied.
Thank you.
Sir,
Understood.
bean util is doing only a mapping other tasks also.
Mapping only. So here student name is available. From the student object will take the name. In the student entity name is available. It will get the data from the student object. It will set the data to student entity object. That's it.
Sir, instead of the student class, why we can't get the data from JSP to the student entity class directly?
That is not recommended, sir. So there is a concept called single responsibility. One class should perform only one action. You can use single class to bind the form data and to map the database table also, but that is not the recommended approach. Form data should have a binding class. Database entity mapping should have a separate class. You can do it with single class also, but that is not the best practice. In the real time, they will not accept it.
Oh.
Sir, this model class can be called as BO also, sir. In many companies, they say BO, business.
Yeah, some people will call as BO, some people will call as VO, some people will call as DTO. There are some different names are there.
But all are same, sir.
Yeah, purpose is same. So
Okay.
BOs or DTOs or VOs or VOs, they are used to transfer the data from one layer to another layer.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Now I am calling it as a binding class because form data is binded to student object. Form binding.
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
It was really beautiful, sir. Thank you very much for clear explanation.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, in real time, while developing the applications using Boot or normal XML based projects are there?
95% of the projects are annotation. Very legacy old projects are XML. That XML is outdated. I don't think anybody is using XML now.
What about bank related projects?
I am working on the banking project only. We are using annotations.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
I'm working for topmost bank in the US.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hello.
Your H2 database has been accessed in browser, okay?
Yep.
Okay. There's a link, okay, for accessing, okay? I think. And
H2, I mean, localhost :8080/H2-console. That will print on the console. Now, whenever you run your application,
okay.
that URL pattern also will be printed on the console. By using that, you can access it. Now, my application is started. Your application will have a URL. After that URL, you need to keep this. Then you can access your H2 database.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Actually, sir, I just want to ask you what is the use of H2 database? Actually, it is a virtual database to check
Sir,
our
H2 database is generally for learning purpose. Now, suppose you are using company laptop. In the company laptop, can you install any database directly?
No.
Then you want to do some POC. You want to develop one application by persisting the data. Then quickly you can go for H2 and you can do the experiment, right?
Yeah, it's just a practical purpose.
It is just for POC. It is quickly a ready-made database will be available to develop your application. In the real-time project, we don't use it. We will use it for temporary, any practice purpose. You want to learn something. Suppose, for example, you want to develop a card operation application by using Spring Boot with microservices architecture. For that, in your office laptop, you can't install the. So in that scenario, you can go for H2 for practice purpose. H2 is learning purpose, basically.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sir, what's the difference between Lombok and the regular getters and setters, sir? And
Lombok, you don't need to write the setters, getters, and all that. Boilerplate code we can avoid by using Lombok. I will use the Lombok also in the coming classes.
okay.
I already prepared one video on the Lombok. I will share it. Okay.
Sir, how to bind the Angular application data to this WebMC?
Angular, at the end of our course, I will explain Angular integration also. Okay, now if I explain the Angular integration, everything will mess up. People will get confused. Okay. So just we are understanding a Spring WebMVC module form development. Na? So we are going to integrate with Angular also. For that, we need to develop a REST API. So after 45 days, we will see that application.
Sir, actually, with WebMVC, we can't bind, sir. With REST API,
we can bind it. There is no problem. We can do it. But
you,
whenever you are going for Angular UI, here you should not use controller. You need to use REST controller. So that
REST control by using REST endpoints we can bind. But by using this one, sir,
you can do it. Whatever the URL is available, right? So if you send a post request to this URL, then from the Angular application will bind it. So that is not the right. This is not the right time to talk about that, sir.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Sir, what is interceptor in Spring MVC?
Choose the topic.
Okay.
Yeah. Fine. Perfect, guys. So I have given the code in the GitHub. So I want everybody to practice this application before coming to tomorrow's session. So tomorrow we'll complete the remaining coding part to display the data in the table and do the form validations and implement exception handling. We are going to do it. Thank you, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.